Hello. Let's see. Hello, hello. Hi. Hi, Kai. Hi, Tara. I think my, I think it's a little bit more stable this time around, hopefully. Hi, Shaka. Hi, Lolo. You're back. Thanks for coming back. And Jeanette, hi. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming back. Hi, Creed. Hi, Erica. I'm looking for Sierra. Hi, Mimi. Sierra. Send me it. There you are. Let's see if I can get you in. Sierra.
Hey,
Thank you.
birthday twin.
Hello,
Hey,
birthday
sis.
twin.
Hey,
Yes.
queen. What's up?
Yes. Good to see you. I know
What's up, mama?
you're like, wait a minute. Have Ross and Brian forgot about us? No.
Well, I was digging the convo. I was all in. I was like, let me grab my wine. You know, it's been the
Yes.
first day back to school and
Oh,
piano lessons and dinner. And so this is the first time I had a chance to sit down, take it all
awesome.
in.
So it
So I
worked
was
out
happy.
well. It worked out well having him start.
Perfect,
Right.
perfect.
Yes.
It was perfect.
Yeah, so guys, you coming in, we have Sierra Night and really
Hey,
excited.
everybody. What's
Thanks for joining us.
happening?
And what I was saying, so we have the folks who attended. We just had Ryan Young talk. Now we have Sierra Knight. And then we're also going to be talking to Shaka Street and also Kai Steele. So, Sierra, if you
Yes.
can tell us, a little bit about you and then why you chose this march, the March on Washington that
So
happened.
you and it's weird because you and we talk, so it's a little weird. But I'm gonna kind of back up and tell people who don't know me a little bit. So
Yes,
my
we do because
family,
we have some folks in here, so this is a great
yeah,
opportunity to share.
yeah. I have family who has been in activism since I was knee high to a pup. My grandmother is from the Bronx and moved to Harlem when she was a little girl. She grew up with Adam Clayton Powell and Thurgood Marshall. And, I used to have Thanksgiving dinner with Thurgood Marshall. So I grew up in a
I
family
don't think you
where,
see that one.
I grew up in a family. Well, my grandmother has a book. We talked about that. And she
Yeah.
talks about her life in activism and the civil rights movement. And, when we talk about that, we have to extend that out to all colors. We have to look at women. I mean, 100 years ago, women could not vote. So, when we start talking on a deeper level and you start talking about Black women in this fight, there's a double jeopardy that
Yeah.
sometimes gets lost in this conversation. When we lose our men, we're not just losing our men, we're losing the entire family structure. So, this is deeper than one election and one conversation and sort of
Yeah.
one nugget of things that's going on. It's a lot of heavy, heavy, heavy things that are going on around us right now. But both my father, my grandfather, uncles, they are all medical doctors. HBCUs, Meharry, Howard University, Southern University, Fisk. My mom was an administrator at Spelman, and on and on and on. So that pride and that understanding, that appreciation for the knowledge of self is deeply rooted in who I am.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so with that, this was not your first march, but
This was not my first march.
this was not your first march, But what
No,
was
no,
it
no.
specifically about this march? Like, so one of the things which we shared earlier too was it was great when you guys, you know, took the time to kind of stop and share with us why you guys were there. For those of
Right.
us who wanted to participate, for those of us who were just proud that you guys were doing it and sharing it. So seeing you guys sitting there, was there a moment that when you got back home, you were like also reflecting on how this march was different from you, for you?
Well, for absolutely. And I will say that one of the things that I took from the march and sort of, had the beauty of appreciating that um, I bonded with people in a way in which, because we met sort of in another forum, doing other things. And now I've carried these people over into something that is meaningful to me, and they shared that interest as well. So I think for me, what I took out of that is I have family that I never had before. And I think what was most significant or equally as pronounced about it is we had a man. A lot of us women do things together, and we hang out and we plan and we coordinate. But I never had a guy come to something like this with us and like sort of spearhead, protecting us and making sure that we were safe and making sure that, uh, everything that we wanted to do was sort of under the guise of Brian saying, girls, what do you need? Ladies, what can I do for you? And I found that to be extremely moving because I had never been to a march before that was outside of my father or my ex-husband or, someone that I had that kind of relationship with. So I thought that that was very nice. And I was open to sort of reaching out to brothers going forward and saying, hey, would you be interested in doing this as well? Because I felt like, maybe let me take my part in it. Maybe we're not inviting them. Maybe we're not exposing them. Maybe we're not introducing them. Or maybe we just don't know. Maybe they're already participating and we're not locked in like that. So I think one of the beautiful things about this whole experience with CQ is we're locking into people that we don't obviously know we share some of the same interests.
Yes. That's so cool. I mean, and so as Brian was sharing that, he was like, "Oh, I was making sure they got here," and I said, "We appreciate that. We do."
Right.
Um, and so for that experience, so when you came back because of your family history and what I was calling you guys are action takers. We are all well, a lot of us are action takers in different ways. And then there are those
Yeah.
who are like, what can I do? Right. So
Right.
when you came back, if you want to share like one of the things you're doing, I know we've had a lot of conversations on different lives. I think one of them was on Mark Anthony's live, and you and Mark have conversations. What actions are you taking going forward as we're in this countdown? I believe it's 56 days, 55 days. What actions are
Yeah.
you taking, and what would you kind of like to inspire, encourage people to join you or to do, or information you would like to share?
Well, I think I've kind of had a conversation with you and a lot of different people about, actionable things. You don't have to do something grandiose. You can do something as small as going to, your church or talking to your grandparents or talking to elderly aunts and uncles and asking them, can I make sure that your ballot gets mailed for you? Do you know what you need to do? Do you know the dates that you need to have these things in? Taking a young person that is a first-time voter, I believe, Brian sort of touched on this a little bit and saying to them, would you like to come with me? Can I talk to you about what my experience was? This is all about making people feel comfortable, understanding that you vote down ballot, not walking in that box. I remember the first time I ever voted, and as much support as I had, I was still overwhelmed. I walked in, that curtain closed, and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And there were names that I knew and there were names that I didn't know. And so what I walked out of there saying was, wait a minute, I need to do some learning behind everybody that's, on this ticket. What does that mean? Can I vote for someone who is a Democrat in this, but may share my views as a Republican with that? And sort of understanding what your voice means is impactful. And, once you do that thing for someone else, it ignites them to understand or even want to learn. And I think, rather than criticize people about their choices and their decisions, let them make one first.
Right.
And then say to them, well, let me challenge that. Let me ask you why you're thinking that. Because sometimes people make a decision and, honestly speaking, a lot of us center our views around the people we love, the family members who vote a particular party, the spouses or partners that see things a particular way. And you need to have your own voice. You need to understand what it is you find important. And that's a process. So take a young person, pack a bag, pack lunch and say, let's do this together. If you have questions about something and I can answer you, let me answer you. If I don't know, let's learn together. While we standing in this line, let's Google them. Let's figure it out. So I think that, this election is so important because, it is an existential crisis. People are sort of taking Trump very lightly and not seriously because that's been his arc. That's been, how he stood on a platform. I'm not serious. I'm just joking. Right. He's dead serious. He's deadly serious. And this is a deadly situation. 193,000 people are dead. We had a police officer today from upstate New York who killed Mr. Prude, who said, resigned. We had another one where Breonna Taylor is concerned, resign. We don't want you to resign. We want you to go to jail. You need to go to jail. You need to respond to your actions.
And I can leave, go to jail.
And quitting and going to another police department, that don't work for me no more. No, that's not acceptable. Unacceptable behavior. So, like Brian said, I stand with the youngsters, but it's a lot of us old heads who out here like making a lot of ruckus, and I'm going to stay with the youngins till we get it done.
Well, I think you said a lot of key things. One of the things that stuck out when you were just saying, even going to vote. So we talk about that's the step of getting people who haven't voted to vote, but even going to vote, that experience was overwhelming. And even as you vote, even if you're voting every 2 years and locally, so many things change. I've traveled quite a few, so the where I go vote in New Jersey is different from how it looks in New York, and being prepared and how do you pick. So I think that is so key because I don't hear that talked about as much, and maybe that's in some of the like vote.org sites where you can see how to do that. I love that idea. And then to the point of let's have a conversation. I love having a conversation, not so much judging, because I do remember on Facebook right after 2016 people who were like, oh, I didn't vote, and they were kind of proud about it. Other people kind of jumping on them. And my point of that was like, you need to vote in 2 years because this is serious that you didn't vote. So you're right. I think it's about having a conversation. And so if we can get to those people who haven't voted, and like you said, there may be some in our age group like, yeah, I just don't see my vote counting, and I'm not wasting that, and I'm not going to get sick. The other thing,
I don't want to get too deep into that, but I do want to touch on that a little bit. I think that we got to remember, as brown people, yellow people, black people, a part of the systematic process is to make us think that what we're doing is not relevant. And that's a part of the mentality. That's a part of the structure. So if you think that, okay, well, if I don't participate because I'm not getting the people that I want voted in, that's exactly the process that they want you to fall into. Every election is not going to be every person that you want. You have to understand that you're marrying issues together.
Yes.
And you can bring in people that you like, and then you can encourage people to vote in your best interest once they get in office. And that is a conglomerate. That's how politics works. Walking into it and saying, well, I don't like this president. Many people, and, I had a big argument with people who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because, at the end of the day, I felt it was because she was a woman, and no one can convince me differently at this point. But that's another conversation for another day. And I hope we'll have it. But I think that when we didn't vote for someone who was most qualified for the position because she was a woman, speaks to where we are as a country. When Barack Obama said, don't boo, vote, he was talking about the fact that we are not recognizing what it is that's important, and we're rallying around saying something that has no basis. So don't boo, vote meant more than what people read on the surface of it. He was trying to say to you, you need to understand that this is not about team A or team B. This is about you. and what it is you want out of this process. And so I think that, you know, young people, what we can do for them and what has touched my heart in such a profound way is that we could teach them better. You know better, you do better.
Right.
And so I think if we jump into the process and say to them, well, you know what, there's been a lot of things that we've done that has not worked for us. And we teach them how to vote down ballot, you know, looking at localities and municipalities and understanding that when you vote for that attorney general and when you vote for that police commissioner, through that person, through that mayor, they choose those jobs, then you're impacting your community. And so I think that if we teach people how to do things differently, we'll get a different outcome. You know, a lot of us don't like it. We don't like it because it's not working for us because we haven't been taught the correct way to do it.
Interesting. So I know I can see, you know, having, you know, with your family and being involved, you're very passionate. Have you thought about what your next steps are in leading the community and having a role in government?
Well, I tirelessly wear my family out. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and just do it. At this point, they get tired of me at dinner with CNN and MSNBC. And they're like, for God's sakes, like, do something. So I've decided I'm going to run. I don't know quite yet what office I want to run for. I've never been the type to be afraid of a challenge. So I don't know if it's going to be a senator or a congressman, or maybe, you know, I should learn my way up the ladder. Yeah. But I think that it's important for me to have a voice because I believe in my people. I think that there's no other people on this earth that God created that are more special than Black people. We came to a country where we didn't know the language. We didn't know how to communicate. We were broken from our families and we thrived. We survived. We flourished. We built things. I mean, we built this thing for free. We built this entire country. We built this joint for free. So there's no one that can tell me that Black people aren't unique and special and beautiful and creative. And so, you know, once we sort of break these bonds, we can work towards getting what it is we need to get done.
Yes.
And I want to participate in that.
I love that. So, I mean, so you have your support here. You guys heard it. She is not sure exactly what, but we do.
I'm going to keep y'all posted.
Yes, we're going to keep us posted.
I'm going to keep y'all posted.
And I think when we, just kind of the last couple of months, I know it's about justice, but is there certain just issues or something really dear to your heart that you want to see changed?
Well, I think you and I have kind of touched on it. It breaks my heart. And I want to say this before I kind of talk about what that is. I think, you know, the burden of the brutalized is not on the brutalized. The bystander, the person that's watching people be brutalized, it's not our job to comfort them. It's our job to invoke that they work with us. So I've heard a lot of conversations lately about allies and, you know, anti-racist. And so, you know, I make a point to, you know, and there's lots of people on here that are not Black, that I love dearly, that are my friends. And I implore them, because right now they sit in the positions and the wells of power, to say to them, I got a little 9-year-old Black boy. I'm not going to watch him die in the streets. That won't happen. It's unacceptable. So I want you to go home to your husband and your grandparents and your friends and say to them, you have a friend that you care about that will not allow someone to shoot their child in the street because you thought he did something and maybe he turned around and maybe he stepped out of the wrong way. Like, you know, I think for me, when I saw, and I heard Brian talk about it, and you talk about it, when George Floyd laid in that street, and it really took me somewhere with Trayvon Martin, but when George Floyd laid in that street for 9 minutes and we watched him gasp his last breaths of air and ask for his mother, it's enough. I'm done. I'm actually finished. And there's no more conversation. There's no more negotiations. There's no more chance to see it differently. And whoa, wait, we didn't mean that. It's over. This has to be fixed immediately. Like right now.
Right now.
Immediate, right now. So, you know, and I feel like any of us, you and I have talked about, if you got a cousin, a brother, a husband, or anybody that's Black, you got to feel that same way, because you don't know if they leave to go to the grocery store, if they're going to come back home okay.
So
That's
one of the
trauma.
things,
Like, we're living with constant trauma.
and even when Brian was speaking, one of the things I thought in moving, I remember finding my journals from college and finding journals a couple of years ago, and I was writing about what's happening now, and I was like, when is enough enough? And I wrote this poem, Profound Colors. It was talking about being how people see me as that before human, and I was just like, my goodness,
Yes.
like I wrote this like 15 years ago. Like, it's kind of crazy
Right.
how things have changed, but they really haven't changed. I do want to ask you,
Well,
one of the discussions I've heard about is defund the police, right? How that is confusing. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on defund the police. If that is a word that we should have changed. I think, folks are explaining it. It's reallocations, but what do you think about that word defund when there are people who are voters? And, of course, in black and brown communities, we have police officers in our
right.
families. So what does that mean to you when you hear defund? Do you think that's the right term?
I think that yes. So to your initial point, I think it's absolutely the right term. They don't deserve, we pay them. They work for us. So for someone to come into our communities, to attack our men and boys, to attack our women, they don't deserve to be paid by us hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then we wait on an answer to what they've done. They don't need that type of revenue. Do we need to also, in addition to defund, figure out how we re-strategize and redesign what the police department means? Absolutely. I think it is something that goes together, but I actually don't have a problem with shaking the hell up out of people and saying, yeah, defund them. Yeah. You don't deserve to have $100,000 a year salary and a pension when you leave because you shot an innocent man in the street because you're not exactly sure why. You maybe thought he might have went in his car and possibly could have gotten a knife. I don't know what that means. So I'm not on board with paying you for anything that has anything to do with that. I am paying for someone to make sure law is enforced, to protect and to serve me. And the key words in that whole phrase is protect and serve.
Yes. And I think some of the confusion, I think the folks agree with the reallocation, but what I was hearing online and on Twitter was a lot of discussion around, yes, because for instance, like I think just even yesterday, it was a young 13-year-old individual, young boy who had mental challenges, and his mother called and he was shot. He thank goodness he's still alive, but this is a white teenager, right? And it was a mental health call. It's a mental health call. He's shot. And so what's going to happen when you don't have police coming for doing the right thing? This happens. And yes, it happens more in Black and brown communities, but it happens across communities, especially when they don't know what to do with mental health cases. So I think what I was hearing in the debate was really, is it the same defund? Because people are, the cops are just, we're going to get rid of the cops, which of course we know the other side kind of escalates it and make it what it's not.
Right. Well, and I think that is one of the most fascinating things about politics is that, understanding verbiage and how language is used to sway people and manipulate people. And you can take that positively or you can take it negatively. I think what's important, what I have found to be so interesting in my years of life is that, people talk about African Americans and not understanding how to vote and not understanding politics. We are some of the most savvy politicians. We understand exactly who you are. Like 99% of the Black people recognize that Donald Trump ain't. Yeah. We get it. But we don't need to go back and forth over it and reanalyze why we're just like, nah. And people tend to say to us, well, you guys only vote a certain way. You're monolithic. We're not. We understand things and we understand things this way. I have fascinating conversations with my old uncles about who to vote for and why not to vote for those people and really what their life story is all about. And, you know, what I think we don't do though, is we're not allowed, because of being discouraged in a variety of ways, to amplify that, to really say, this is why we are and aren't voting for people. So, you know, what I'm hoping for this next generation of people is that they see that and they say, well, you know what, I'm not going to be defined by that. I am going to actually, and they are. I think they've been showing us all summer that their voice is very important.
It is. And so what would you like to leave folks with and inspire them and kind of give a challenge?
Well, you know, I'm hoping that we have a lot more conversations like this. I hope that, you know, just like we party and we celebrate and we worship and we listen to music and we read and we love art, we begin to communicate. We begin to love on each other. We begin to understand a little bit deeper.
Yes.
We begin to want to ask questions, to become a part of sisterhoods and brotherhoods, even if it's not in an organization. If we just understand that there's a lot of people out there that understand you and want to understand you. If they don't, it just takes that reaching out. It takes that one thing to do. I think that as far as, you know, what's going to happen in the next 2 months, I can't say it enough. Go vote. Go vote. Go vote if you don't even like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Still, go vote, because that is going to be the thing that moves the needle forward. And we need to move this needle. It's time. It's an imperative that this needle gets moved. So, you know, I don't want to be too preachy. I think philosophically people should figure out who they like and why they like them. You know, if you got some questions, I'll be happy to drop some nuggets on you. But, you know, I think that it's a personal thing. I think it's a thing that, you know, if you do your due diligence, you'll get your answer. You'll get the person that you should be voting for. But most importantly, let's start the process with going to vote.
Awesome. Thank you. That's what we need. And
thank you, sis.
And I think you and Brian, like, we're all agreeing it's around the conversation, right? And
right.
It's around what can we do and how can we support, and something like, yes, get your neighbor, take a young person with you, make it an outing with a group of people going, because I know with my family, my parents and my sisters, they go together. I'm in a different state, but you know, it's a neighbor, like add the young people in your community. So I love that. So thank you so much. I'm looking at the time. I want to bring in, I think it's Shaka, but I'm just really want to save this and come back. And you guys have been great. So come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'm loving it. I love you.
I love you. Bye. I'll be right back.